In 1915, on a battlefield in Belgium, a new demon was born. It wasn't a man or a machine. It was a weapon of pure chemical terror. A yellow-green cloud that crept silently into the trenches and seared the lungs of men, inventing a new and agonizing way to die. The man who personally oversaw this attack, the father of modern chemical warfare, was not some faceless general. He was a celebrated scientist. But here is the paradox that haunts our modern world. This same man, this architect of suffering, is also the primary reason half of humanity doesn't starve to death. His other invention, a process that pulls food from thin air, is the single most important scientific breakthrough for sustaining human life in the 20th century. How can these two legacies belong to one person? This is the story of a man who was both a savior and a monster. This is the deeply unsettling, paradoxical, and world-changing backstory of Fritz Haber. To understand the hero, you first have to understand the problem he solved. In the early 1900s, humanity was staring down the barrel of a gun. The global population was booming, but our ability to grow food was reaching its absolute limit. The problem was nitrogen. Plants needed to grow, but pulling it from the air in a usable form was a puzzle nature had solved, but humanity hadn't. For decades, the world had been propped up by a temporary solution, mining colossal mountains of bird droppings or guano from islands off the coast of South America. It was a dirty, finite solution. Scientists of the era issued grim warnings. They predicted that by the mid-20th century, the world's natural fertilizer supply would be exhausted, leading to catastrophic global famine. The Malthusian trap was about to spring shut. The world needed a savior. Enter Fritz Haber. A German chemist of Jewish heritage, Haber was a man driven by two powerful forces: boundless scientific ambition and a desperate, all-consuming patriotism for Germany. He yearned to be accepted, to prove his worth to the fatherland. And he saw the nitrogen problem as his chance. He knew that our atmosphere was nearly 80% nitrogen. It was an endless, untapped ocean of potential. If he could figure out how to fix it, to pull nitrogen from the air and turn it into ammonia, the building block of fertilizer, he could solve the impending food crisis and make Germany self-sufficient, forever freeing it from foreign supply lines. He called it bread from the air. For years, he toiled. The challenge was immense, requiring temperatures hotter than a volcano and pressures that threatened to tear his equipment apart. But in 1909, Haber succeeded. He created a small, continuous flow of liquid ammonia from nothing but air. It was a scientific breakthrough on par with the discovery of fire. Working with the engineer Carl Bosch, the process was scaled up for industrial production. Fritz Haber had done it. He had defeated famine. He had, quite literally, pulled bread from the air. Haber was a national hero, a scientific titan. But 5 years after his discovery, the world changed. In 1914, the Great War began. The German military found itself locked in the brutal, grinding stalemate of trench warfare, and they were desperate for a new weapon to break the deadlock. And Fritz Haber, the man of boundless patriotism, saw this not as a moral crisis, but as another scientific problem to be solved. He threw his genius and his entire laboratory into the German war effort. When the supply of nitrates for explosives ran low, it was his ammonia process that kept the German war machine running. But he didn't stop there. He proposed a radical, terrifying new idea: a weapon made of poison gas. He personally pioneered the weaponization of chlorine gas. He calculated its density, its reaction to wind, its effectiveness on human lungs. He saw it as a more humane weapon, one that would break the enemy's will and end the war quickly. He dismissed the concerns of his colleagues, calling the Hague Convention's ban on chemical shells irrelevant. On April 22, 1915, near the Belgian town of Ypres, Haber was there to personally oversee the first large-scale chemical attack in history. At 5 p.m., the valves were opened. 150 tons of chlorine gas drifted across the battlefield. The French and Algerian troops in its path had no idea what was coming. The gas, heavier than air, sank into their trenches, searing their throats and lungs. It was a horrifying success. A new demon had been unleashed upon the world, and Fritz Haber was its father. But the true cost of his creation was felt most deeply at home. His wife, Clara, was a pacifist who saw his work as a perversion of science. She begged him to stop. He called her a traitor to Germany. Days after the Ypres attack, following a party where Haber was celebrating his success, Clara took her husband's service revolver, walked into their garden, and shot herself in the chest. According to historical accounts, the very next morning, Fritz Haber left his dead wife and grieving son to oversee a gas attack on the Eastern Front. When the war ended in defeat for Germany, Fritz Haber was branded a war criminal by the Allies. He fled the country, fearing for his life. He was a pariah, a man whose name was now synonymous with a new and terrifying form of warfare. And then came the ultimate, mind-bending irony. In 1919, while still in exile and condemned as a war criminal, it was announced that Fritz Haber had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his pre-war work on synthesizing ammonia. The world was forced to celebrate the man who fed the world, while simultaneously condemning the man who gassed it. He had saved humanity from starvation, only to invent a new way for it to die. The ripple effect of Haber's dual legacy is the world we live in today. The nitrogen in your body, the food on your table, a significant portion of it is there thanks to his process. The global population exploded from 1.6 billion in his time to 8 billion today, a feat impossible without his discovery. Yet, the terror he unleashed at Ypres also echoed through the century, from the trenches of WWI to the chemical attacks of the 21st century. Fritz Haber's life is a haunting testament to the terrifying duality of genius. His desperate need for acceptance drove him to save his country, and then to arm it with a weapon of horror. His story forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. Can you separate a scientist from their creations? Can we celebrate the discovery while condemning the discoverer? Fritz Haber died in 1934, a broken man, exiled from the very country he had tried so desperately to serve, a country that would later use a pesticide developed in his own institute to perpetrate the Holocaust, killing members of his extended family, a final, tragic ripple from a life of paradox. So, was Fritz Haber a hero, a monster, or something far more complicated? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And for more backstories that reveal the hidden, often uncomfortable, truths that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe. Next time, we lighten the mood considerably with the unbelievably silly and true story of the CIA's top-secret mission to turn a cat into a spy.